Hey guys, this is Layout Review. I wanted to do a video comparing FlyQuest and 100 Thieves. Reason why I'm comparing these two teams is because, well, they're at the top of the table of LCS. Both teams are kind of a surprise to be in the 1 and 2 slot, especially 100 Thieves because they have 3 rookies. And then FlyQuest, they have their rookie AD, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of players. So yeah, that like there wasn't really any apparent previous synergy outside of Whippo inspired. So that is pretty interesting to see them already being up there versus like around the third, fourth place, which is I was thinking they were going to be at. And let's get into it. So the major difference between these two teams is 100 Thieves is an active, or you could say proactive team for taking fights, creating situations, and pretty much making the games fun to watch. I guess that's the best way I could describe it. A fun way to watch. I think when you are a proactive team, even if you make mistakes, and they do make mistakes naturally, again, he's on the team. Like, you think these guys are going to all play at the same level as Blippo in a consistent, like, oh, I can see all these different situations, scenarios appear, and I know how to solve them? Of course not. They have a lot to learn, right? But the fact that they have a willingness to actually attempt the solution in game on the big stage means that they have a lot of growth that can be gained, even if they lose, even if it's a tight win. And of course, they've had tight wins, and that's honestly probably the best part, is the fact that they're doing this. They have a very learning-esque way of playing, that they're pulling off wins and getting that benefit. Whereas with FlyQuest, and this is probably my biggest issue with FlyQuest, is that they are kind of just a control-based team that doesn't do that at all. Like, Whippo's a smart laner, smart player, knows how to play around jungle, he knows how to kind of operate on his own because he knows what the jungle wants to do, needs to do. He can kind of read how his bot and his mid situation are going through. So he doesn't need a lot of help per se, but he also isn't playing like some of the old ways Whippo used to play. Like, Whippo, for make things spicy, he would be proactively trying to create situations in top lane, but that doesn't happen so often now. Kind of just looks for the best way to solve his lane state and keep himself in a rather good spot. And the picks he plays, as you could tell, are all kind of like in the same ideas. Now, they're all immobile tops who counter and deal with Cassante. They can side pretty well, but their actual fight presence will heavily depend on how the other like lanes are going. Like, Cassante is good, but he's not necessarily going to win you the game, even if your bot lane is lacking, right? Olaf, same thing. Obviously, if like you face a Fed Zaya as a Olaf, get deleted. Gragas is actually probably one of the few exceptions, along with Mord, where like you do feel like that strong impact because you can actually make the plays, right? Like, Mord just pressing art actually has a heavy impact. Gragas landing a sick combo, big impact. So his picks are kind of like that, and so he's kind of off on his own. Jensen, like, he's playing only scaling picks, and he's not even making a ton of plays on the scaling picks. Kind of just chilling, waiting. Nothing bad's happening. Not really helping his team per se do stuff. Balling is probably like the most interesting picks that they do. I mean, like, you can tell they do a lot of aggressive, like, lane priority based picks. You see like Jin Ash, you see Ezreal Karma, you see a lot of Varus play. This is probably these two here, the Senna Seraphine and the Smolder Blitz, are probably the more reserved, like, okay, we're gonna let you do your thing kind of picks. And they didn't necessarily go the best, I'll be honest. Especially the Smolder game, like, Their bot lane could make any proactive plays, and no one else was making any proactive plays. Like their mid and top don't really do it too much. So nothing really happened. And they were kind of put in a spot where like, yeah, like they're like farming fine and everything, but the game state just felt so low. Like you're kind of just waiting for your opponents to make a mistake and catch them on it and then turn the game around. And they almost did at the 20-minute mark, where there was an error by Shopify, but then Boogie outplays them in the fight and then kind of brings it back. But it's the fact that, you know, this passive farming style can work in the LCS because, I mean, teams are just not that good. Like, I'll be perfectly honest, but like the teams just don't execute the best, both in fights and even on the macro side. So naturally, if your players can just farm up and then you're not really making too many mistakes and then you're just strong naturally because you farmed well, you did good, how would I say, good approach towards vision. You got the vision, you're first on objectives, and then you know how to kind of approach the objective. And they do execute fights reasonably well, honestly. They do. And so they kind of just win games off that way. And that's okay, again, for LCS, but the second you like branch out of LCS and you face teams that are really good at being proactive, teams that have very creative drafts and have like big champ pools and all these kinds of things, this style just does not work. Like it just won't work. You won't be used to playing at that speed. Your lanes are definitely going to fall apart more quickly than they usually do, because the enemy team is actually forcing you to answer situations that you just aren't used to because LCS much. And it's just not fun. I mean, what do you learn when you kind of just sit back, you know, you just kind of farm and just do your thing, and then naturally you just go into a fight, you win, and then that's it. Like other teams practicing doing like constant dives, invades, and getting like lots of value, they're learning stuff. But FlyQuest, I feel like they're not actually learning too much. That's just how I feel. I feel like their balling does actually try to learn. Like these guys will 2v2 fight, they'll create situations, and that breeds like good things to come. And I don't know if their idea is that, well, we'll have Whippo play this style so that they can actively do this and learn quickly, and then maybe later on everyone like Whippo will start doing it and then create more situations across the board. But right now, so much. And Inspire just kind of farms his camps, does his thing. If he doesn't have to interact, he won't necessarily. And like this brand game was a huge example of this. Like you would think like Cloud9 didn't do anything, and they literally just farmed their way to a win. Their enemy bot lane made 2 major mistakes that these guys 2v2 won. And honestly, it was more on Berserker making mistakes than on Masu or Lucio being like good. They just punished the dumb, stupid mistakes this guy made, and they won the game. That was it. It was very uneventful. And some games will be like that, but I feel like the majority of the games do feel like that overall, which is not great. So when I compare like the 100 Thieves comps, and like what they're doing, you're gonna notice that Quid is playing a ton of stuff. He's playing melee mids, he's playing the range picks, he's playing a lot of like champs that are quite unique. You know, like Shopify, they knew that this guy plays Scion mid. Well, guess what? We're gonna play Aatrox mid. You know, I'll play the Ori. You know, I'll play Silas, and like I'll try to go for big plays. You know, it's just this idea of evolving and like seeing what you can do. That's great. And Quid is also doing quite more in terms of like team fighting. Like he has a lot of confidence. I don't know if that's the team giving him the confidence or he just feels more comfortable being in LCS now, but you can see that he takes the fight to people and he's just doing the plays that he normally would do. And everyone expected him to do when he first came over. Like, he was pretty bad, like actually really bad in his initial LCS games when he came over initially. But now, yeah, like now he looks like the player that people were expecting to see that watched him in the LCK CLOL or CL. And then River, and everyone knew River would be fine. But like, how hard would it be to actually play with these guys? And he's showing he can do it pretty easily. Honestly, it's quite impressive what he's doing. And, you know, initially I assumed like he could not really play carry junglers not because he's not good at it, but because his team just can't afford him to do it. But the fact that they can get games like Lilia in with the right comps and like win, big. Each, you know, he's having great time playing skill shot based ADs. Like, he's actually rather good at that, and it's working well for them. Ayla, still just as bad as you expect. Pretty bad, honestly. And then Sniper, like I said, he's actually progressively doing better throughout the split. And I don't know where his trajectory is gonna be heading by the end. But if by the end he's contesting everyone and actually contributing in fights, then basically they have two solos who can handle themselves, who then give space to Meech, who can play the game. And really the main thing is just, can they fix their support situation, because that actually will stop them from and even like contesting the top teams. So there's FlyQuest style, right? There's 100 Thieves style. And then if you look at the like this kind of like, what is it called? Games of Legends, right? Stat page. You can see like both how the players are doing and how the teams are doing, and kind of get a rough idea on like where they're at. Like, you know, kills per game, 100 Thieves is at the top. Like I said, these guys are bloody. They like making things spicy. They'll go for plays. They will learn from it. And it's not exactly the perfect style, because in the end, you do need to actually farm and get gold that's on the map that's free. Like, over forcing plays is one of the big issues 100 Thieves has, and something they're going to have to correct and tone down. So they're not exactly the right spot, but because they're such a proactive team, taking the risks in the first place that other teams won't, they're still finding opportunities, and it gives them also good practice on executing fights. Again, if you're a control-based team, you're going to run into less fight situations, and that will also lead to just not learning as much and not growing as much in those categories. Basically, you're growing in the, are we disciplined? Like, you're kind of growing your discipline, right? 100 Thieves not growing their discipline as much, growing their fighting characteristics more. Naturally, they're also top for most deaths, right? So their KDA is like 1.07. So they're basically breaking even, but breaking even while taking that many fights, not bad, right? FlyQuest, meanwhile, are at the top for this category because they have basically the least amount of deaths, right? And they have like at the midpoint for like kills per game. So it's not like they're not finding opportunities, but it's still not as much as you expect from them. And, you know, if I go to the gold difference, obviously they're at the top. Why? If I go all the way over here, boom. They're number 2. CS per minute for the team, 34.8. And if you go to players, you type in LCS, you click on top, CS per minute, Whipple's at the top. Go for jungle. Where is he? Inspired, number 4, close to the top. Go to mid. Hey, Jensen at the top. Now this is the one that's not going to be the same. And Masu's 8.1 because they make mistakes while fighting in bot lane. So this has led to some pretty drastic CS drops in the end. But as you can tell, the overall story is that they are good at finding farm both inside and in laning phase. And naturally, they're strong from just being a good farming team. Guess what? 100 Thieves are almost at the bottom. Okay, 100 Thieves are almost at the bottom. And that in itself will hurt them later on. That is like, if they can't properly get people 3 gold, then when you face a team match your plays in the early phase, or maybe like your plays just aren't working the same, you don't know how to like recover in a safe way. So that is something they're gonna have to actively think about later on. Because yeah, like I said, maybe it can work and take you so far in LCS, but when some of these top teams catch back up and get more comfortable, like C9, like Energy, and they're doing that part, you're gonna struggle. And so if I look at, let's see, it's my guy. So Meech, he's towards the bottom. They've played more, like some more of the. I think they played more of the. Have they? Actually, no. From what I know, that definitely the bot lane has had some issues, but it's not because, personally, I don't think it's because of Meech. It's more because of Ayla and his laning. But they're definitely struggling in the bot lane with the support pick, like I said, and that in itself is going to be a problem. With mid lane, again, Quid 8.6, a little low for a mid laner. That's pretty low. Go to top lane. Let's me go to top lane. Looks like I broke it. Beautiful. Anyways, though, might be able to. Nope. Oh well. Oh well. We won't worry about it. But ideally, I'll tell you right now that Sniper's not at the top of CS per minute. He is not farming as well as his competitors. And River also is not farming as well as his competitors. But that's mostly because he's making a lot of plays. And as I said, that will eventually bite back later on, like especially against a team like FlyQuest, where again, if they're able to avoid the plays and just do the same thing they always do, they might just win. If they fail to execute, or like the way that 100 Thieves looks to execute their plays on a FlyQuest, and FlyQuest falls behind a little bit, and really their only solution is basically looking to do side trades and then just wait on a mistake, and that mistake doesn't come because 100 Thieves have just gone good at executing and staying ahead, they just lose. And that's it. So I think the most interesting thing, you know, looking at these two teams and how they're moving forward, is that if 100 Thieves by the end of spring find a support replacement for Ayla, and they take all the things they've learned from this split, like if they make top 3, top 4, that is a huge win on their side. And then they go into summer with a stronger laning support, and now they have 2 solos who can be activated, and now they can really focus and grow on Meech. This is a legitimate team, like an actual legitimate team in the LCS. FlyQuest, meanwhile, you know, I feel like they have to adjust their playstyle and the way they approach the game. And I will admit, the way Jensen plays does impact the team, because he's never been, or I shouldn't say he's never been, but definitely in his later career, he's been more of a sit back player. He's not necessarily a bad player, but at the world stage, like how Millers need to play the vision game and all those things, like he's not necessarily great. And you know, if they have a mid laner, and obviously, you know, when they had Inspired had Jojo would take a lot of pressure and create situations, which is amazing. And Inspired can kind of bounce off that. Jensen's not doing that. So if they find a mid laner who can do that for them, placing Jensen, then I would say this team also would evolve and look way more interesting. And at that point, then now you have Cloud9, the same roster, I assume. Though personally, I have a growing feeling that they should replace Vulcan. Which some people would disagree with, but personally, like I don't have a lot of hype for Vulcan right now. And then Energy would keep the same team, maybe replace top lane. That would probably be their big thing, is replacing top lane, and just getting someone who just lanes really well. Pretty much it. Like someone who lanes really well in top lane. And then these like teams make these adjustments. It's like TL, it would be harder. I feel like, I mean, they would have to. I mean, they would have to replace mid basically, which they could, and just go even further into the direction that they already gone. Which they, knowing TL, they probably would just pick up a Korean mid or something like that. Probably. Because they need like another threat, right? And suddenly, like all these teams, like with this, like replacing one person or making the adjustments they do, way better. Like look, way better. I think that's. We'll see if the league does go that way. Like I said, but for these two teams, FlyQuest and 100 Thieves, I think 100 Thieves have had a far better approach to like actively improving and creating situations to improve from, versus FlyQuest, who kind of are just farming wins. So we'll see if the 3-week break changes the way FlyQuest operates. I know it won't, and we'll see if it changes the way 100 Thieves operates, because again, like I said, if they don't make their adjustments to think about the game a little bit more economically, I guess that's the best way to say it, a little bit more economically, then they also will struggle. But in their current trajectory, it is fine for how spring is going. FlyQuest, if you have hopes for international, this must change. That's all. Thanks for watching.